Let's cross live to Joti Brar, Vice Chair of the British Communist Party in London. Thank you for joining us. First of all, congratulations. What do you think of those elections? A big win for Workers' Party leader George Galloway and a big loss for the Conservative and Labour parties. What is your opinion of the results?
Yeah, it's a great result. It was lovely listening to George's words there. He speaks for a huge amount of people in Britain. And, you know, his statement that he made at the beginning of his victory speech, where he said, "This is for Gaza," Keir Starmer, hit the nail on the head. You know, he really tapped into and turned this election into really a referendum on British complicity in the war in Gaza, in particular the genocide, but also on the Labour Party's role in backing up the government and being complicit. And, you know, British people have been watching in horror, those of us who are following what's happening in Gaza, you know, disgust at Britain's complicity and horror at the scale of the genocide and the way that it's being facilitated by our ruling class from all sides of the parliamentary alleged spectrum. And the fact that Keir Starmer, who is supposed to be a human rights lawyer, refused to call for a ceasefire, even after the International Court of Justice gave its ruling saying that there was grounds for thinking that genocide was being conducted and everything should be done to bring that to a halt immediately. You know, they revealed that his nature and his party's nature as servants of British imperialism, with no connection to working people, no interest in working people, no interest in the truth or in justice. And so I think a lot of people up and down Britain today will be cheering at George Galloway's result.
Would you then pin the reason why both main UK parties lost this election on UK's current unwavering support for Israel, or is there more to it?
You know, it was a very low turnout, the by-election. There's a huge amount of British working people have given up on electoral politics altogether because they've learned over decades of betrayals and of seeing their hopes dashed that whoever they vote for, they get the same result. All the parties, the main parties, serve the imperialists, the ruling class. They don't serve the interests of the people. And their living standards have been going down and down and down for decades now. So there's a huge amount of disaffection, dissatisfaction, cynicism towards politicians and towards the media, and that is only growing. So there is a economic element to this also. But the particular glaring nature of British complicity in the war means that in an area where many people are plugged into and paying attention to what's happening in Gaza, they simply can't swallow any of the main parties. And George was quite right when he pointed to the fact that in this by-election, something astonishing happened. You know, we often see in a by-election that either a ruling unpopular government or a local unpopular MP get a beating in a by-election because it's seen as a kind of safe protest vote in a by-election. You know, it doesn't matter to people, or it's not framed in the same way as a national election. So it has, you can have a kind of letting off steam effect from a by-election. But this was quite significant in that both an unpopular government and an unpopular opposition took a beating.
That is quite interesting. Would you then say it is rare to see a foreign policy stance of the United Kingdom dominating a parliamentary election campaign? Or would you say this is just the tipping point because, according to you, this is unprecedented?
It's rare, but not unknown. And of course, the person who is famous for having done this before is George Galloway. When he was with his Respect Party, he twice won by-elections on an anti-war ticket. So when that feeling is running high, he has a particular ability to tap into that because, of course, he is not only eloquent in his anti-war views, but very well known for them. And very well able to put the case across and to connect with people and their disenfranchisement and upset. You know, I'm really hoping that this means we are now finally going to get a real anti-war voice in Parliament. I mean, you referred earlier in your piece to the kind of chaos that's been in the British Parliament. Rishi Sunak said, oh, because of, you know, the threats to MPs, we're not even able to follow our own procedures in Parliament. What absolute nonsense. You know, this is a threat, an insult to our intelligence and a total perversion of the truth. He turns reality on its head. They are looking for excuses not to talk about Gaza because it shows them all in a terrible light. And I'm really hoping that they're going to find it very difficult to continue doing that with George Galloway in Parliament.
And talking about Rishi Sunak, he was quick to denounce Galloway's victory as a threat to democracy. How does that come across to you?
Well, what I said, it's a total insult to our intelligence, isn't it? You know, when they talk about democracy, you see what they mean when they say to us, well, in that same speech, Rishi Sunak and other people have been saying this in the weeks leading up in the media and in Parliament, that this protest movement has gone too far. What do they mean by that? They mean it's gaining traction and workers are joining it and they're not just going quietly home again. They feel, working class people think that their opinion should count. And the ruling class is saying to them, no, you're only allowed to express yourself as long as we don't feel pressurized by it. And as soon as they start to feel that the working class is becoming mobilized and angry on an issue, they're like, oh, no, no, no. And they start playing the victim card. It's absolutely shocking. You know, they're portraying themselves, these rich parliamentarians who serve the ruling class, the capitalist elites, who are sending weapons to Israel. They're portraying themselves as the victims while thousands of people are living under bombs daily. 2 million people living under bombs. 30,000 people have been massacred. We're seeing new, fresh, horrendous massacres every day. And they're portraying themselves as the victim and saying, it's not fair that people keep talking to us about this. You've made your point, they say. Now be quiet.
So, would you say that the current political climate in Britain sets a precedence for what is ahead? What's your general thought about it with the way things are changing in the other direction?
I think Rishi Sunak's speech seemed like it was laying out the rationale behind a new wave of repression against the right to protest, the right to speak, an attempt to brand the pro-Palestine liberation movement, solidarity movement as something criminal, extremist, racist, all in order to justify crushing it because they can't answer it. But, you know, there's very simple questions we can ask if we want to think about this question is, was the aim of destroying the Nazi state a criminal aim?
Great
Was
question.
the French resistance criminal? Was the Red Army criminal? Was the Warsaw Ghetto uprising criminal? As soon as you start to think about what you're really talking about, that the opposition to a genocide is being branded as hate speech and a crime, you start to see what an Orwellian dystopian world we're heading into.
An Orwellian dystopian indeed. Joti Brar, Vice Chair of the British Communist Party. I know you'll be celebrating tonight, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.